It's time to end gun violence in Canada.
This is a step towards tighter gun control.
The next government absolutely must address the rise in gun violence.
There have been 3 separate shootings in Toronto over the last 24 hours, one of them fatal. Could a new Liberal election promise help curb the gun problem in our city? Justin Trudeau says a re-elected Liberal government would ban assault rifles and let municipalities decide if they want to ban handguns. Trudeau making his announcement on the Danforth, the scene of a deadly mass shooting just last year. That's where Ali Shia joins us live from tonight. And Ali, the mayor of this municipality, wants to ban handguns.
That's right. Well, Mayor John Tory would prefer a national ban on handguns, and he would like to see more investment on cracking down on the guns that come into Canada illegally from the United States. So Mayor John Tory sees this Liberal proposal as a step in the right direction, but it is going to be a long road no matter who is in power.
On the issue of guns, one thing I can say is that not enough has changed.
In front of the media today, and with 2 tiers of cabinet members and local Liberals standing behind him, Justin Trudeau makes his pitch for gun control.
We will ban military-style assault rifles and start a buyback program for all military-grade weapons that were legally purchased.
And then there's this.
We will work with the provinces and territories to enable municipalities to restrict handguns.
That's something our mayor has been asking for over the last violent year and a half.
None of these measures in and of themselves are going to solve the problem, but I believe that a handgun ban, for example, would make a difference.
Municipalities don't have the power to legislate one on their own. And even with the blessing from the feds, the province could still block it.
I think it's going to make a difference that's going to save lives. And as a result, I'm sure Mr. Ford will want to sit down and have a sincere discussion about letting Toronto make use of this power that is proposed here.
Today, Trudeau criticized those who oppose this plan.
There are many Conservatives out there who think we should be weakening gun control.
Just earlier this week, the Liberal leader was on the radio saying his Conservative counterpart was, quote, in the pocket of the gun lobby, to which Andrew Scheer responded today.
That's a ridiculous accusation made by a Prime Minister who's mired in his own scandal and desperate to change the channel.
And Mayor Tory doesn't think Trudeau was pitch perfect today.
It won't be as effective as a national handgun ban, which is what I have called for. It is what the Toronto City Council has called for.
And that's what policy experts say would actually make a difference when it comes to gun violence.
It's ridiculous to talk about shifting responsibility for this to municipalities. First of all, they all have separate governments and they're not all going to agree. And secondly, there's cities like Toronto are surrounded by other cities and towns and whatever that may or may not endorse the ban. And thirdly, there's no way to really enforce it. It's an election season. You have to take all this with a grain of salt.
The shooting on the Danforth last year.
Yeah, Dwight, and that was committed by someone using a legally purchased handgun from somewhere else in Canada. And while experts consider today's promises as more symbolic in nature, today did mean something to Danielle Kane, a woman who was shot and paralyzed in the Danforth shooting. Have a listen to what she had to say.
Perhaps if Toronto takes the lead on this and institutes that ban, other cities will follow across the country, and maybe they'll see that it works and that gun violence does drop once you institute tougher legislation.
So we reached out to several GTA mayors today to get their response to the Liberal proposal. And we heard back from Mississauga Mayor Bonnie Crombie, who says she is open to exploring the idea of a regional or municipal handgun ban. But she also makes the point to say gangs have no borders or boundaries. This is a national issue. Send it back to you for now, Dwight.
Thank you, Ali. Other party leaders face questions about their views on gun control today. The Greens are in favor of both a handgun and assault rifle ban, while Conservative leader Andrew Scheer was asked if his party would ban semi-automatic weapons.
What we're talking about is whether or not it is effective to have blanket bans on other types of firearms. And what we've heard is from police experts that it's more effective. It'll lead to safer communities if we use police resources to go after criminals and illegal firearms.
Scheer said his party supports robust regimes around screening process and sale of firearms. Scheer took questions at a campaign stop in St. John, New Brunswick, where he also announced a pledge to spend $1.5 billion on replacing aging medical imaging equipment in hospital. In Windsor today, NDP leader Jagmeet Singh also spoke about the NDP's plans for universal pharmacare, but he was also asked whether his party supports a handgun ban.
The first step is that there's a number of municipalities that have asked for this power. So our first step would be to ensure that those communities have the power to do so, and that we make laws that allow them to do so. The second step that I've indicated in a letter that I sent to the Prime Minister over a year ago was we've got to work on getting at the root causes of violence.
It's become an all too familiar scene. A man is dead after being gunned down in the city. It was one of 3 shootings that happened in Toronto last night. Kelda Ewan is in Regent Park, where one of them took place. And Kelda, it's been 5 weeks since Toronto police launched a multi-million-dollar program to combat gun violence.
That's right, Dwight. It's called Project Community Space. It was launched exactly 5 weeks yesterday when these 3 shootings took place in the span of just a couple hours. Speaking with community leaders today, including those here in Regent Park, they say they haven't seen change, at least not yet.
Grieving friends and family gather in a plaza near Middlefield Road and McNichol Avenue. It was there 25-year-old Sharankin Chandrakanthan was fatally shot around 10 o'clock last night.
It's sad he had to leave this way. Sad he had to leave us young. I can't believe I'm here putting flowers and candles for him.
He was like the sweetest boy like you would ever meet. Like, honestly, the sweetest boy.
Chandrakanthan was shot twice inside a black pickup truck. He died at the scene. There was another shooting in Regent Park around the same time, leaving one man seriously injured. And an hour and a half later, police responded to shots fired near Eaton Centre. It's been more than a month since Toronto Police launched Project Community Space. The 11-week program was to include more engagement with communities and an increased presence in neighborhoods frequently associated with street gangs and gun violence. Toronto Police wouldn't speak about whether or not it is a success so far, but Regent Park community support worker Soraya Ibrahim says,
I didn't notice anything.
She also doesn't think more policing is the solution. Instead, that the city needs to invest more in youth programming.
And also having summer jobs and volunteer opportunities that could make them busy and could be valued as a human being. Everybody have to put their head and help support and young people instead of seeing them as a deficit.
Elizabeth Correa grew up in Regent Park and witnessed a lot of gun violence, but nothing like what she sees now.
Not only is there an increase, there's no fear anymore.
She now works as a youth mentor in neighborhoods across the city.
I think that what we're doing or what the city's trying to do, or, I think what everyone's trying to do is it's all surface stuff.
Instead of more policing, she thinks the focus should be on intervention and rehabilitation.
How are we rehabilitating our communities and these youth and these people who are, one, they've been, most of them, living in poverty their whole lives.
Since the project was launched, there has been a decrease in gun violence. There were 42 shootings in the month since the launch compared to 66 shootings in the month prior. Now, the project ends on October 31st. Toronto Police Chief Mark Saunders says that he will give an update on the outcome of the project in November. I'll send it back to you, Dwight.
Thank you, Kelda. Jonathan Davis was an innocent bystander who lost his life after a shooting in Malton Saturday. Tonight, the community will hold a vigil to remember the 17-year-old. We'll take you there a little later in the show. Justin Trudeau revealed more information today about the blackface video that came to light yesterday.
It was a costume day for river guides on the whitewater rafting in the whitewater rafting operation that I worked at in the summer of between '92 and '94, roughly.
Didn't recall this episode until the video came out, but says he's been forthright about what he does remember. We now know he wore brownface or blackface on at least 3 occasions. The Liberal leader says that as far as he knows, there were no other incidents, but he couldn't say conclusively. NDP leader Jagmeet Singh says Trudeau's team has reached out to him to speak about his actions. He says he's agreed to a private meeting. U.S. President Donald Trump was asked today about Justin Trudeau's brown and blackface controversy, and he expressed surprise.
I was hoping I wouldn't be asked that question. It had to be you that asked it. You had to ask me that question, right, Justin? I'm surprised, and I was more surprised when I saw the number of times. And, you know, I've always had a good relationship with Justin. I just don't know what to tell you. I was surprised by it, actually.
And Trump isn't the only one commenting. The incidents also provided late-night TV hosts with plenty of material.
I'm not going to show you the picture because it's really bad. It's so bad that Canadians traveling in Europe are going to start telling people they're American.
There are so many problems with this photo. First of all, it's obviously never okay to do blackface. And secondly, if you are going to darken your skin, at least get the color right, okay? Yeah, Trudeau isn't dressed as Aladdin. He's dressed as Aladdin doing blackface. That's not the color of Aladdin. What are you doing?
This is pretty bad. And I just want to say, it's not us this time. Suck it, Canada.
A child was hit by a car at this Parkdale intersection earlier this year, and it's had some residents concerned about road safety in the neighborhood. But is on-street parking part of that problem? I'm City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly, and I'll have more for our Safer Streets series coming up.
Crowds of climate strike protesters gathered around the GTA today as thousands around the world took to the streets in the global climate strike.
Why are we here?
Because we want the Earth to be safe.
We want to save the planet, and we think climate change needs to be dealt with immediately.
Our governments and policymakers haven't taken sufficient climate action, and it's our responsibility to ensure they do so, to ensure that future generations can enjoy the same opportunities that we did.
You know, the climate issue, in my opinion, is the biggest issue, because if we don't solve the climate issue, the other issues won't matter so much.
The rallies are calling for world leaders to combat what protesters are calling a climate crisis, and Toronto is joining in on the mass demonstrations, making their own commitment to the environment. Mayor John Tory announced today that the city is set to join 800 local governments around the globe in declaring a climate emergency.
This is something that I, as mayor, did in order to help us to put an exclamation mark on our existing and future efforts to make sure that we do everything we can to address this as a city, especially in light of the fact that we see governments elsewhere sometimes backing off on the sense of urgency they bring to this. I think the time is here for more urgency, not less.
The declaration will be considered at City Council next month, and in New York, thousands of young people gathered at one of the largest strikes as world leaders are expected to arrive there for the upcoming United Nations Climate Summit on Monday. Stephen D'Souza has more.
It's just one of the scenes here at the student climate strike in New York City in downtown New York, Foley Square. Thousands of students have taken over the square. More than 1 million students in New York City were given the day off to come here as part of this event, one of 1,000 events going on around the country and hundreds going on around the world. And you speak to students here and they have 3 core demands. One of them is to end dependency on fossil fuels and the use of fossil fuels altogether, to protect Indigenous communities and frontline communities that are most affected by climate change, and to punish the polluters. Those are the 3 demands that students here have. They also want to embrace climate-friendly legislation. One of the organizers is actually a student by the name of Calvin Chan, who is from Canada originally, but moved here, decided to take up the cause here. I spoke with him earlier.
So we have to get the message clear. We have to get the message across to these policymakers, to these change makers, that we are the people that will be affected by climate change, and we need action now.
The inspiration for all of this, of course, is Greta Thunberg, the Swedish activist who began protesting last year, and now what started in Sweden as a small protest with one student has rippled around the world with thousands here in New York City. And when you talk to students here, she's clearly the inspiration.
And I think I really support Greta's cause, and I think it's really inspirational how a 16-year-old was able to rise above all of the adults who are who aren't paying attention to the earth, and inspire everyone to pay attention to it.
A lot of adults think that we're here just to skip school, but most of us in our age, we're more mature, and I feel like we could say something for ourselves, and we have opinions that matter too.
The message here is clearly personal. The students here are thinking about their future. One student we spoke with said when he thinks about college, it's not a matter of whether he can get into college, it's a matter of whether the world is even going to exist in the way he knows it, and if college is even an option. And so this is clearly designed to get people's attention, and it has. The UN is holding a number of climate events over the next week, and so that's why these events are just beginning to ramp up in the coming days to get the world's attention, to get adults' attention, but also to get the attention of corporations to make sure something happens. Stephen D'Souza, CBC News, New York.
And Nick, we're both parents, hoping that the future generations have a beautiful planet to enjoy just like we did.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Dwight. Now, unfortunately, I can't, I'm kind of stuck on that one right now. We're really hoping that the kids, keep going because it's incredible work what they're doing. But what I have for you is some good news for the weekend. Okay, I'm going to go take more of a short-term view on this thing. 23 degrees is where we're sitting right now in the GTA. As we look at the humidex value is actually up to about 25 in the city right now, and we're getting a little bit warmer toward the weekend. This is one last sort of warm push before the end of the summer. It's coming to a mix of sun and cloud for the most part today. What we're looking at, though, is a system that's moving in from the west. Now, that won't affect us until Sunday, but at least for the next couple of days, we've got some nice weather in the forecast. For tomorrow, look for mainly sunny skies, chance of a few pop-up showers through the afternoon, and then it's really not until Sunday where we're looking at a cold front that's moving through, and that's going to drop temperatures down into next week, but it's also going to bring with it a few showers to kick off fall. Here's a look at your forecast for tonight, 15 degrees, 25 degrees for tomorrow, slight chance of seeing a few showers, and the humidity is rising. Full details coming up.
That workers knew was coming, the GM Oshawa plant shut down its car production line today. The line that makes Chevy Impalas and Cadillacs was halted. It's all because of a lack of parts coming in from the U.S., where nearly 50,000 United Auto Workers are on strike. Now, earlier this week, the Oshawa plant sent home 1,200 workers on the truck assembly line. Today's move to stop vehicle production means another 650 temporary layoffs. Employees, though, are being paid during the layoffs. Is street parking putting pedestrians at risk? Some Parkdale residents are concerned that's exactly what's happening. And tonight, as part of our Safer Streets series, City Hall reporter Lauren Pelly went to the community to look at some solutions.
In March, Macdonnell Avenue was a frightening scene for local parents. A young girl was hit and injured when a driver turned from a side street. While it's not clear what caused the crash, mother of three Sarah Kranitsky worries it could easily happen again.
It's so close. It's a block and a half away, not even like 1 block away from where I live, and it could have well been one of my kids riding their bike to their friend's house.
She's among the residents concerned on-street parking could be making the stretch unsafe.
On the west side of Macdonnell, that's where you're going to find all these side streets, which bring in pedestrians and traffic. On the same side of the street, there's a row of parked cars, and some people say that cuts visibility for people walking and driving around. But on the east side of the street, there's no parking and no oncoming traffic.
In a petition to her neighbors, Kranitsky is proposing moving all that parking from one side to the other, something she says will make it easier for both drivers and pedestrians to spot each other.
It just means that when kids and adults who are walking on the other side of the street are navigating around the neighborhood, they will be able to have better view of the traffic.
This road safety advocate says the problem is compounded by not enough stop signs along Macdonnell.
Over the last 70 years, we've designed our streets to move as many cars as fast as possible. And now we're seeing the consequences of that.
And people in Macdonnell and the surrounding streets decided overwhelmingly they don't want to move the parking.
The area's councillor says 2 previous petitions didn't meet the city's bar of getting at least half of the neighbors to support the change.
We should go and take another look if we're on the right side, and if that helps.
Kranitsky is baffled by the resistance and red tape.
It's a simple administrative change. It's a very low-hanging fruit that doesn't cost any money.
Lauren Pelly, CBC News, Toronto.
Really what this project speaks to is where we are right now with technology.
The director behind Hotline Bling says you used to make calls on your cell phone, but now you can make music videos on them too. More of my conversation with Director X next.
The weather update is brought to you by Train Extreme Conditions Testing. It's hard to stop a train, really hard. Train, the most reliable heating and cooling brand.
Director X has been the creative mastermind behind some of hip-hop's most popular music videos. The Brampton director has worked with Drake, Rihanna, Justin Bieber, just to name a few. And today he announced he's partnered with Samsung to give a new challenge to a few aspiring local filmmakers. Make a music video, but do it in the palm of your hand. He told me more about it earlier today.
I have 3 directors from my company, Pop Rock. So we got Kat Weber, Justin Abernathy, Justin Singer. And we've paired them with 3 local Toronto artists that are really next to blow. You know,
musicians.
Really, musicians, you know, singers, rappers, really bubbling in the city, making some noise. So we got Anders, we got Pluto, and we got Liz Lacry. And putting them together to shoot music videos with the new Galaxy Note 10 Plus.
I think we got to see Anders perform at that Shaft preview. Yeah, that young man is very talented. So this is, are we talking about the democratization of filmmaking here? Because they can take something that's in their pocket and shoot a music video. What have you seen done creatively with that? Does it change the fact that you're doing it on this device?
Yeah, to a degree. Look, it's in your hand. You can. This can now be a shot. You know what I'm saying? We can do all these things. They got bigger, wider lenses. They have all this interesting stuff that the camera's capable of doing. But really what this project speaks to is where we are right now with technology, not just technology as far as the phone and the cameras, but also in the platforms in the aspect ratios. So one of the directors is going to shoot it horizontally.
Okay.
Someone's going to do it vertically, and another director is going to do it square, right? Because these are now the formats that exist, right? So the vertical videos are a thing. Well, let's shoot a music video vertically. Horizontal will always be around, and square. These are all just things that we're doing now, and where a lot of these things are seen, social media, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, this is what it is. So we're embracing all the new technologies.
Let's go back to your earliest days of making videos here in Toronto. What was your experience then? Because it wasn't like that.
No, someone had to give you money, man. You had to
video fact grants.
Video fact. Someone had to give you like 10 grand. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
At least, like, you needed a couple $1,000 at minimum to get anywhere close to a camera. You know, you had to pay for lights, you had to pay for film, you had to pay for you had to do all this stuff. It was a really involved process. And now, again, phone,
it's right there.
record. Yeah, if you got a good set of friends, talented friends, you can really make some moves.
We'll finish with this. You've seen it from the beginning till now. Why do you think that music videos are still relevant? With so many things changing with social media and just disruption all over the place, it seems like the music and the videos, that partnership is still relevant today.
Oh, completely. Look, this is the culture. This is how the visuals get out to the world. A lot of stuff can happen here. And what well done can have real impact. Like, remember what This Is America did, right?
Yeah.
I mean, again, it's a big budget project, but you and your friends can do something creative like that. You can go and push limits. You can go do big things. It's just, again, a matter of willpower, friendship, and, you know, if the stars align in the right way, you can be on your way.
And you're trying to help 3 young people get on their way with this project. Looking forward to seeing their work, sir. Thank you for your time.
Bless.
All these people gathering tonight to honor a life that was cut too short. I'm Angelina King at the Melton Community Center in Mississauga, where the life of Jonathan Davis is being honored, an innocent bystander who was shot and killed last weekend. We'll have more on how he's being remembered. That's coming up.
A community grieving tonight. Friends and family honor the life of a 17-year-old who was gunned down on Saturday in a hail of bullets. It has been a week of heartache and grief for the family and friends of Jonathan Davis, the high school senior who was shot and killed Saturday. Police say he was an innocent bystander when a group of people opened fire outside a Mississauga apartment complex. Tonight, the community is holding a candlelight vigil. Angelina King joins us live from the Malton Community Center where it's taking place. And Angelina, how is this young man being remembered this evening?
Well, for one thing, we could say he was popular. There are hundreds of people here tonight, people remembering him as being quiet, respectful, kind. He was very into video games, and just the community support here really speaks to the type of person that he was. I'm joined by Blues. He helped spearhead this whole thing. I first want to ask you, what does it mean to you to have the community come together like this tonight?
What it means to me personally, oh my goodness, there's nothing more that means anything to me. I could have won the lottery, I could have won anything in life, but this feeling right behind me, having my own people who I've seen day in and day out for the last year, 2, 3, 4, 15, 20, 30 years, is amazing.
And tell us how Jonathan Davis is being remembered here tonight.
He's being remembered as pretty much what you see around you. This is his environment. This is what he's seen. He's been active in the Malton Community Center programs. He's been here. This is his house right in the back. What you see here is the best way to explain that.
Thank you very much, and we'll catch up with you later. There's a lot going on tonight, but first I want to take you back briefly to Saturday. It was a warm evening. There was families lined up at an ice cream truck when a group of at least 7 people opened fire at an apartment complex not far from here. Innocent bystanders, including Davis, were hit. Family says that he was just on his way home to quickly change his shoes. There was more than 100 bullets that were fired. Police called it an ambush-style attack. They are still looking for the suspects. But tonight, it's all about Davis, so we'll soon be hearing from his family and his friends as people here gather to remember a life that was cut too short. Dwight?
We'll look for your story tonight on The Late Show. Thank you, Angelina. We told you last night about a Toronto police sergeant found guilty of sex assault. Well, it's a rare conviction according to data obtained by CBC News. Christopher Hurd is the first Toronto police officer to be found guilty of an on-duty sexual assault in at least 6 years. The Special Investigations Unit has investigated 80 other allegations of sexual assault by Toronto police officers since 2013. Only 5 of those investigations led to charges, and until Hurd's case yesterday, none of those charges ended with a conviction. He will be sentenced in December.
High-tech noses. I'm Philip Lishanok, and I'm here at U of T, where they're showcasing new technology to help sniff out sources of odors and pollution. That's coming up.
The path to becoming Canada's next Prime Minister runs straight through the 905, and a key battleground is shaping up to be Brampton. The 3 main party leaders have all been there since the election campaign kicked off last week, and that's where I was last night hosting a panel on affordability. Here is some of what was discussed.
You cannot buy a home as like a first-time buyer in Brampton anymore. And expect your mortgage to be manageable and your down payment to be manageable. So one of the biggest pull factors that Brampton had going for it for a long time is disappearing.
Is part of the problem of what's happening in Brampton is the fact that it's the single home versus the condo versus the townhouses that are available? Because the dream was to have a home, right? Not a condo, but the condo is the entry level into the market that you're able to get the condo, you get married, you have kids, you try to buy the home. There's not a lot of that entry-level housing we see in this region.
We're suburbia. You know, we don't see a lot of condos here, so there are not a lot of entry points. I'm actually a first-time home buyer, but I could not have done it without the support of my parents. I had just enough to get a home, which is actually a bungalow. It was like ripped apart inside, and it was like, you know, we bought it at a good time.
We call it a fixer-upper.
A little fixer-upper, but I can't afford to live in it.
Well, the biggest challenge, I think, even our current city council will tell you, is we are lacking in investment for the size of the city that we have. Even if you calculate it at 600, not 700,000, we don't have. We have 1 hospital in the city of Brampton.
Ridiculous.
We don't have a university. You know, we're still struggling for transit funding and trying to get an LRT.
What matters to you this election? We want to know here at CBC Toronto. What issues do you want us to dig into, or do you have questions of candidates or parties? You can connect with us by phone or on social media. Just email us at mygtelection@cbc.ca. Call us at 416-205-6000 or connect with CBC Toronto on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We will do our best to tackle all the issues that matter to you and the GTA this election. As we showed you earlier, thousands of young people across the world have taken to the streets today demanding urgent action to deal with climate change, which poses a threat to their future. But new studies suggest global warming isn't just an issue at that large scale. Youth are increasingly experiencing what's being called eco-anxiety. Christine Birak looks at how young Canadians are coping with this.
Feelings of fear.
My generation is facing a future of economic instability,
Uncertainty.
food scarcity, extreme weather events,
And helplessness.
and we